Hello, welcome back to All of the Street Fighters, where we're looking at almost all of the Street Fighters. Last time we looked at Fighting Street, or Street Fighter 1. Today we're making the monumental leap into the future, jumping into Street Fighter 2, The World Warrior. This is the second entry in the Street Fighter series. That may seem obvious from the name, but there are 7 Street Fighter 2s, so you can't see the name Street Fighter 2 and assume that it's the second game. But this is the second release. It's the absolute sequel to Street Fighter 1. Such a massive leap. I mean, this is the game that everybody knows. This is the famous one. This was my first Street Fighter game. As a child on a caravan park in the Peak District in the UK, they had a Street Fighter 2 The World Warrior arcade machine. It was my first ever taste of Street Fighter, and did it change my life? Maybe it didn't change my life, but 25 years on, I'm still playing Street Fighter, I'm still loving Street Fighter. It's just the best, which is why we're doing this series. So yeah, Street Fighter 2, what did it bring from Street Fighter 1? Well, it brought character selection, is one of the main things. 8 characters. In the first game, you could only pick Ryu. You could play as Ken if you were player 2, but that was it. If you were playing single player, you could just play Ryu. In this one, you've got 8 characters. You've got Ryu, Ken, Guile, Chun-Li, Dalsim, Blanka, E-Honda. Who am I missing? Zangief. So you've got your 8 classic characters. These are staples of Street Fighter 2. A lot of them get lost along the way in future entries, but these are the core Street Fighter 2 guys. I'm going to try and play through these, I think, as Ryu, just so that we can see how he changes each time, because he's the one constant who's in every game. So I'm playing through this arcade mode as Ryu here. This is the arcade version that we're playing. I've actually got a Street Fighter 2 The World Warrior video up on the Virtual Boys channel already. We've ranked this game in Ranking the SNES, and it's our current number 1 SNES game. It's 31 videos deep or something. So yeah, and that's how much I love this. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at a different version and the original version, the classic arcade one. This is the original one. This is the as I said, my first Street Fighter, and I think a lot of people's first Street Fighter. So an interesting thing to note about Street Fighter 2, and we'll find this as I do the channel, is that there's tons of Street Fighter 2 games. They're still releasing them now. Even though they've done Street Fighter 3, 4, 5, Alpha, all these different series of Street Fighter, they released a new Street Fighter 2 game this year on the Switch. That was Ultra Street Fighter 2, The Final Challengers. That's a full price game, came out on a game cart. This game just refuses to die. It's probably the most important fighting game ever. I think that's quite an easy statement to make. It's influenced more or less every other fighting game. The fact that they can still release them in 2017 as a full price title, and according to the UK sales charts, it sold more than the new Marvel vs. Capcom did this weekend. That's a game that's got one of the biggest licenses, the Marvel license, attached to it, and the sequel to some of the most beloved Capcom fighting games. The new version of Street Fighter 2 outsold that in its first week, apparently. So that shows you how massive the game is. So yeah, apart from the character selection, the 8 characters we can play, what else is new? Well, I mean, the graphics, for a start. The visuals are such a leap on from Street Fighter 1. I mean, these layered, I don't want to say 3D, but these layered backgrounds, just the amount of colours they can use, the frames of animation, it's such a smooth game. The first game felt very, very stilted. This feels awesome to play. As new version of Street Fighter 2 came out, they balanced the game, and they kind of added in new frames of animation, new character art, new moves for some of the characters. But as a core, Street Fighter 2 The World Warrior, it still feels totally awesome. So another of the things that Street Fighter 2 is famous for is the bonus rounds in between fights. So the first bonus round has you beating up a car. You've got a time limit to smash it up. It's just worth points, it doesn't get you anything other than that. The second one has you fighting barrels as they drop from the ceiling and trying to smash barrels. And they're really cool. They're one of my big memories of Street Fighter 2 and playing it in the arcade. It's the beating up the car. It seemed just awesome back in the day. So when you fought your way through the 8 characters, there are the 4 boss characters. Vega, Balrog, Sagat, and finally M. Bison. They're not playable in the World Warrior. We'll see those in future entries, but the World Warrior, as I said, just has these core 8 characters to play. So just like Street Fighter 1, Ken is very much a palette swap of Ryu. He's got the same moves. Well, a palette swap is not the right term because that would just suggest colours, but he's essentially the same as Ryu. In the first game, in Street Fighter 1, they were literally the same because player 1 would play Ryu and player 2 would play Ken. And that was all that was controllable in the whole game. So you essentially had one character that you could play. They've kept that going here. They did separate them in future entries, and we will see that. Not very far in the future, they started to separate them slightly. But in this game, they're literally the same moves. So yeah, that's Street Fighter 2: The World Warrior. I can't overstate how much of an important game this is. I mean, if it wasn't for this game, obviously the series wouldn't be where it is now. This game was absolutely huge. This did so well, and this was so massive that they released the sequel, which will be the next game that we look at, just 9 months after this came out, just to capitalise on the massive success that this had. It was a game changer. It was an absolute game changer, and well, I guess we wouldn't be doing this series if it wasn't for Street Fighter 2, because I probably wouldn't be looking at Street Fighter 1 just individually on its own. So, yeah, I wouldn't say it's my favourite Street Fighter game, but it's certainly the most important, and I still just absolutely love playing it today. It's still just as playable. I totally recommend you going out and finding it. It's available on the SNES, available on the Mega Drive. You can find it on anything. You can find it on MAME. Just play it. It's incredible. It's still awesome. Still a great fighting game. Sequels came out. Some added a lot. Some added not so much. But this is still a pure, fantastic fighting game. Street Fighter 2. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time. Bye bye bye.